on to Pummy and Oz. Hope we're all doing absolutely awesome. How good is Monday? We love a bit of a Monday. Well, I mean, this is probably the most hotly anticipated video. This is going to be the first of many series. You'll see me on Blue Abroad, no doubt. I'll tout myself off to other podcasts as well. This is where probably my favourite time of the year, and it's something I spend a lot of time into. So what I'd do is I thought we'd do like a little preview of AFL trade period. I won't give too much away. We will mention some players, but some ilk, and try and give some scenarios to get the juices flowing of what we might do. So this video here is kind of what's available to the gentleman in the screen there. Nick Austin is a very good list manager. He knows what to do and how to do it. And some scenarios of how maybe some rumours that are in the trade period. A lot of what I think I would do if I was Nick Austin. And we can have a little bit of a discussion and work around it. So there'll be a lot of series of potential scenarios coming up in the off-season to really whet your appetite here and Blue Abroad. So let's get straight into it. So Nick Austin, what does he need? You'd probably say he definitely needs some outside run. Probably some key position depth at both grounds. And you would say, based on what we've seen this year, there is going to be probably a niche on kicking foot skills. Good foot skills, maybe a bit of foot pace if you can get it in there, particularly on them outside run players. And then probably outside of that, you'd probably be definitely looking, the small forward area is an area we'd love to have the depth we have down back to allow that and to get some rotations going. Just looking at how Vossi plays, I think we're all in agreement in that. So it'll look something like that, one would presume, I would say, without going out for a beer with Nick Austin. I'd hope he would agree with me. But that is kind of the rough indication and the kind of the gut feel I get of what he's going to do. Now, how will he do that? Let's take a look. At the moment, as it stands at the moment, we've got pick 10, pick 28, 62, 64 and 82. Very interesting picks. A real good space there to do it. Now, he could go that. So, like, if he had pick 10, probably Ollie Hollands, you would say, maybe Bailey Humphrey. He might take them a little bit earlier or where they are. Bailey Humphrey being a really interesting one. We may talk about him or we may not a bit later on. A lot of depth in 28 as well in that position if you wanted to go with outside run or small forwards. The small forwards this year, remember, are probably less than they ever have been for some reason. So they are a bit of a commodity. 62, 64, 82. You predict that he would probably rookie elevate someone with a last pick, and maybe that is where he takes a bit of a speculative pick. I don't think it'll be too extravagant there. Do you know what I mean? I think that may be something like a Quenton VFL player will go. But that being said, let's have a look at what we think we do. So trade time. What I'd imagine is Blake Acres is probably, well, you'd say he's a lock. He's one of them weird non-free agents, but he is a free agent, but he is. Bizarre what the AFL do. But I would predict that Quenton will probably be wanting to give up a future. I wouldn't be surprised to see a future second. I'd say that's around his money. Quenton will bat themselves probably to finish in the 4. If I was Freo, I'd be doing it based on that. So if Quenton a 4th, that's what, pick 32. It's about the money for a player like him. Let's talk a bit about Blake Acres. He's probably not the most exciting player you ever see. There's a few things that I did just want to talk about with Blake Acres. He's literally, I would say, if you went to Kmart now and you wanted to buy Jack Noons, this is probably the IKEA version. I think that's a fair assessment. Is what you see is what you get. And I think the wonderful thing about him is he's really the high end of average for everything he does. And I think when I look at Quenton's list, what they lack, and I think people, when they do list management and they try and get their heads into the list management, everyone is obsessed with superstars. And it does my head in because most top teams don't have a plethora of superstars. In fact, history says to us, if you have a load of superstars, it doesn't work. I think what Voss would really, really want if you had him in front of you now would be, he wants someone that he can rely on. And that's why he probably went with Jack Noons, because Jack Noons is literally what average is in the terms of his average. You can rely on it. And I think Blake Acres, He's got some nice little turn of skill, very high disposal efficiency, very high kicking efficiency. So he suits that platform. An instant upgrade to Jack Nunes. He's reliable. He keeps his width. He keeps his spread. I think it's exactly what Vossi will be looking for. He gets them 3 tackles a game as well. Very good in defending transition. A very hard two-way runner. So someone that I think is odds on for Carlton, especially with the price that's quoted, 300, 350k. It's cheap as chips. Carlton won't mind throwing a future second away. And I would suspect that this is probably the last draft. I expect Nick Austin to be very, very attacking in this. And I think with the pick that we're going to talk about later, I think it kind of compensates with where Nick Austin is. So a very good trade when that goes through. And I expect that to go through very early doors. I think that's how we're going to know this trade period is good. Because then Nick Austin can cool his jets, see what people are doing, maybe pinch hit around there. Up next is I expect the compensation pick to be, incidentally, the Doggies 37. I would say it'll be at the start of that round. Do you know what I mean? 3rd round. They currently hold pick 37. I reckon that they'll probably look at it that no one in the AFL will complain if the comp pick is there. So that'll be it. So ignore that future second. Because what I'm trying to say to you there is that compensates that one. If you know what I mean, Carlton will basically be compensating that in the terms of for the future. They've gained an extra pick. So I expect the 37 to come in and just see that as that's technically the future second that we've used. It depends what we do, but I would expect that's probably what the AFL pick will be, 37 to 40. I can't see anyone complaining about that because the statistics on the 3rd are slim. So that is a nice little addition for Carlton, I would say. Then I would imagine the future 3rd will go to Fisher McCasey. Let's talk a bit about him. Key position depth. It's interesting because a lot of people misguide this. They look at pick 6 and they'll be like, oh, fantastic. But if you look at Fisher McCasey, he's not played seniors. Do you know what I mean? And he's played 19 games for the VFL. Their Sandful side. Do you know what I mean? And he hasn't broken in, which is as clear an indication as you can see that this gentleman would probably be delisted at the end of his contract. He's tracking that way. 197, 91 kgs. He's performed fairly admirably for the Sandful side, which makes it even more weird. They've added this swingman role to him as well. He started to swing a little bit more forward. To decent effect as well, it has to be said. Definitely a pick that Carlton will look at and go, is there a key defender in the 3rd round next year? No. And I think Adelaide will bite your hand off for a future 3rd. Could even be the pick 37 that we get. Wouldn't surprise me. They will want to be compensated with a year in there. I think it's a fair... And I've seen some figures from Adelaide fans. 1st rounder and shit. Don't work like that. Carlton have got to look at it and they've got to look at it as what's Dow worth. Dow ain't worth a 1st rounder. Do you know what I mean? Based on his VFL form. Because list managers will say, could he do it in the AFL? And he's been okay in the VFL, as has Fisher McCasey. His record is nowhere near his Sandfell record in seniors. Good scope here for development. And I think if Carlton look at it this way, if he can stay fit and we can get him fit, could be a real shrewd one. This is nowhere near the Lewis Young acquisition because you knew he could do it at AFL level. There's still massive question marks about this. So Nick Austin, if he can get it for a future 3rd, he'll get it done because you know he's in the system. A lot of talk that he's unhappy in Adelaide. It doesn't seem a happy place to go. I really like this trade though, and I think this one could really be a real good investment because he has got the skills as Fisher. He's pretty good. Do you know what I mean? He's solid. He's solid. Do you know what I mean? He has his moments, and I think working with Wheaters, working with Lewis Young, I think we could really get some return from him because he's got a very good base. Just get that fitness sorted, and I think you've got a real good, solid key position player there. This is the one there where I think he'll look at pick 28 and pick 10 and go, can I break it up? Now, this works for both parties because I think it gets Sydney right into the crux of things they need, right? First of all, where some of the top end mids are. Do you know what I mean? I think that'll really help them out somewhere where they'll really have a sniff. And I think for Carlton, if they can get 2 bites of that 25 cherry, that's huge. Where 28, you're kind of in the gradient of what do you want? I think 16 and 17 will be it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Austin try and have a sniff. This works about the same on points. You can find players for both sides here as well for what Sydney want to do. They've got quite a young list anyway. So I think for Sydney, they'll probably look for best available and then look at them depth players, which 28 serves them. They get a really premium pick. So I think Sydney would go for this. And I think for Carlton, it's a huge benefit because they're right in the area of players that they need, going back to the start of the video. And that would leave us with something that looks like this. 16, 17, 37, 63, 69, 83. I think a lot to play with there. A lot to play with there for Carlton. And some real moves could be made at the live trade table. But what would that look like if we were trading? Let's have a look. I think pick 16, if he's there, Isaac Keeler. Straight away. I think he suits what Carlton need. I think Carlton lack a key forward that can ruck. I think when I watch it, I don't think TDK is that player. Piternet's certainly not that player, and Murkoff's certainly not that player. And when we look at sides that do play two rucks, genuinely the second guy rucks secondary. And this guy's got a real rider type thing, but he's so much better than that. So I've seen a lot of comparisons, people saying, oh, he's a little bit like Ryder. He's not really. He's like Ryder because he goes there, but he's much stronger in the air, highly athletic, an incredible ability to work the ball at the feet, but also find the snags. I would say, imagine a very raw as well, 200 centimetre Charlie Curnow. So I see a lot. I've been hot on this guy. I think I've posted about this guy all year. Loves that high half forward position as well, which instantly slots him into Carlton. 70% disposal efficiency. Very, very, very good as well with his kicking as well. Decent field kick. Finds the ball. Very strong in the air. Loves to give it up as well. His ruck craft is very solid as well, already from a base. He's a very good ruckman. Uses his frame incredibly well. And someone that I am super excited about. You look at this guy here, and I would suspect on my draft board he could go anywhere from 12 to 20. There's a few guys that I think will rise and fall. And he's one of the guys that have been talked about. But, again, he's a guy that I think in the system, our system, I think he'll suit. And if he's there, for me, what an acquisition. 17 is Bailey Humphrey. Now, this one, a lot of people have started to talk about him late. There's about 100 players, though, that I could name you that I would take that are very, probably not as good as him, but very similar in their output. Two names that I could give you. Ollie Hollands, I'd imagine, will be about the 15 to 20 mark. Braden George, maybe, if you go a different way. Hustwaite, a guy that I've talked about a lot. I love this kid. I love this kid. Now, a lot of people are bolting him up, as they often do. I don't think I get shades of Devon Robertson about this guy in the terms of I think the media are getting on the train because he's had an incredible back half of the year. But I think in reality, I don't think they are. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think he is as high up the draft board as a lot of people are making out. But this guy is really good. Now, what's important as well is he's got some leadership about him. He's been the captain at Gippsland. So I think Carlton need to look at that. Few draft comparisons for you. Some people have said John DeGoey. I see a bit more of a Bailey Smith about him. Do you know what I mean? That can really pinch it in the midfield, but cause a lot of trouble in the department. The way he played in the Carnival was ridiculous. 4 goals. One of the games he had 4 goals and he had 30-odd disposals. Do you know what I mean? The guy is a magnet. And he's got everything you need. He's incredibly tough. He's got great second and third efforts. He's got good foot speed. He likes to use the pill. Do you know what I mean? Again, he's got that little grey area probably on his kicking, but nothing that's technique-based. Something that could be really ironed out on him. But this guy has got it, and he's a tackle machine. And this is someone that I think, if Carlton can, maybe if they keep pick 10, it's a straight-up swap there. But I will go on record, don't think he'll go inside the 10. Don't think he will. I think the media are wrong there, and got a good track record of beating the media, it has to be said, do you know what I mean, over the last couple of years. So, not blowing my own horn, but I think this kid is fantastic. But if this was an Ollie Hollands, again, another pure winger. So that's a top bombing. But this guy can play there, can play across forward, can play on the ball. He's got everything. Real heavy two-way runner as well. So someone that definitely looks out for. But you could put a blanket. Ollie Hollands would be great, and he will definitely be there at this pick. So stay tuned for a bit more in-depth on these type of players. Pick 37. This guy is someone that I've been following a while. Clermont's very good stock. Played 13 games in the Colts this year. And looked fairly solid, it has to be said. Do you know what I mean? Averaging just around the 20 disposal mark. And he can play all sorts of areas as well. Top end, bottom end, 195, 194 and 195, depending on who you believe when they've measured him. This kid has got something special, though. And he's that modern day type player. Do you know what I mean? Quite tall for a wingman. Very good engine. Runs hard both ways. Been very, very versatile, and he's really started to take it on. Do you know what I mean? Take the game on. His ability, though, his engine work is incredible, and it could be something that Carlton look at there that I hope they do, because this kid has got all the gift, and I'm very excited about him, and whoever picks him up, and I think he'll go in that mid-late 30s, very good footballer, and he comes from a great institution as well, Clermont. 63, this one's a bit speculative, this one, but the Knighton Tigers legend that is, he's just been invited to the Combine. Come from the Pioneers, do you know what I mean? Bendigo Pioneers, which, you know, might get some groans. We've been there a few times, haven't we? But this kid has got something a little bit special about him. Very crafty, likes to play out wide, play in the midfield. Comes from good stock as well. He's just got something about him. He's got real hunger about him, and he's got that frame that says for a small forward could go off. He's a real tricky customer. He really looks to take the game on. I really like Jack. He's a bit of a tenacious player, and when you're going with these picks, you know, around this area, you've got to look at someone that could bring you something. And I think he's got the attributes. You know, when you're 177, 70 kegs, it's very lightweight at the moment, but averaging a goal a game, about 3 tackles, just under 3 tackles a game for the year this year. I think he's just got something about him. And he's someone that, you know, I think Carlton could be a bit speculative. I think he's got a high ceiling. I think he'll go unnoticed. And he's going to be one that I'm watching heavily with what happens in the Combine, what his results are. Because I could see this guy being a sneaky little builder. And we know Josh Honey and stuff, we talked about him very early. I think this could be that guy that you just sniff about. Ned Cahill. I've got a feeling that Carlton are going to go for him. Or Ned Carl, if you're on the VFL. I can't bring myself to do it, but I'm a big fan of Ned. And I think Carlton will promote from within. Just got a sneaky feeling the way that they're building their VFL. And I think this guy here probably deserves a second chance. I'm a big fan. I did think about Benny Crocker, but I think he's been on a lot of lists. And I think when you watch what Ben Crocker does, it doesn't translate into the AFL. He ain't going to get them junk time goals. And Ned reads the packs. And I think that's the big issue with my small forwards at the moment at Carlton. They don't have natural footy nous. And he does. And I think he's a guy that would really benefit in that. And I think he gives you a lot of options. I also think when we're looking at Durden and we're looking at players like that who have played further down the back as juniors, and you can see they're starting to filament that game into the AFL. I think Ned Cahill will just put that pressure on, and pressure is really important because I think there isn't enough pressure in the small forwards in the terms of selection integrity, and I think he just really adds something. So I wouldn't be allergic to this. I do think that the 63 and 64, if Carlton use them, and that's an if, depending on what the delistings are, I think they'll be looking at small forwards. Because I think that's when there is a few, and I think Carlton have got some very established small forwards. I think what they're looking for is just that next layer. And I think that will come from them 60s. So I'm looking forward to that. 83, I think the rookie elevate Lockie O'Brien. We know Lockie O'Brien went on the rookie deal. last year, and I think you'll see it again. Do you know what I mean? He was demoted to it. I think Carlton will just look to promote him using that thing. I think they'll leave it late just to see what they're doing. I've got a feeling with that, but I think 83 will be a rookie elevation. Whether it'll be him, whether it'll be Cotters, I'm not too sure. I think they'll go O'Brien, though, based on that, because they seem to be putting a lot of time into him. And I think it'd be great with these guys coming in. If that's an Ollie Hollands, if that's whoever it is, if that's a Bailey Humphrey or someone like that, it's going to be putting pressure. It's going to be putting a little bit of staple on him. And I think that's good. With Blake Acres coming in, it's going to keep him honest. And I think I'd love to see what happens with him just getting elevated. And then this is the one that I think Carlton have got to do. I think with the back end of last year, I think what they really did see, particularly with Tyrese, was in the seniors, Carlton did seem to have just them little moments where could Doc go in the midfield? Could Zach Williams towards the end go in the midfield? And I think they don't really have someone like Tyrese. And I think Tyrese has really impressed me. His tenacity and his energy. And this is someone that I'm looking at that back pocket role. I think Vossi is lacking a back pocket. And I don't think the answer is Stocker. I think Stocker's future is ahead of the football. And I'm willing to wager that if Carlton don't get him ahead of the football this year, he won't be on the list very long. Because what you see in VFL from Stocker ain't going to translate in the AFL. Because when he's playing that role in the AFL, he isn't going to be a guy that you run the ball through. Tyrese is very good at doing a game plan that translates to AFL. Because all it is defensive efforts and simple little 1-2s. And he has really improved. And he's a guy that I am super, super stoked to watch every week. Because every week he's getting slightly better. That first game against VFL, Collingwood, was absolutely spectacular in round 22. The 19 touches, he really got involved. And what I'm loving about him is his attack on the ball and his defensive positioning. These are two things that have improved out of sight, out of mind. His ability to read the play is really good. And last year, I think one thing that went against him was probably the speed element. This is something that you can see he's added and worked hard on. And he's someone here that I think deserves the spot. He's good coverage and someone that really can look at Boyd, Stocker and go, you know what? I do the simple things. And put a bit of pressure on there. Because for me, Stocker has got to go ahead of the ball. Because I think when you look at the round 22 game against Melbourne, why Doc looks so good is he gets rid of the pill. Do you know what I mean? He gets rid of it. And I think that's probably his negative defensively. Sometimes that over the corner kick. I think that may be a future role with a 50-50 role for Doc, which would then open up another avenue down the back for Carlton, and it gives an extra rotation. And Tyrese here would definitely be saying, you know what, I can make the back pocket my own. And I just think that enthusiasm around the ground is what I'm looking for. So that is what I would do if I was Nick and some options available to him. Obviously, like we said, we've thrown about 3 or 4 names there. There will be the AFL draft preview coming up with me and Terry. Check out that. We'll be doing a lot more of this content as well. If there's anyone you want to talk about, please put them in the comments. This is a great discussion and something that I get really excited about. So it's always good fun. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's been very, very sought after. It's the first of many and I can't wait to do it. But till next time, put me out.